So welcome back to our May Basic Saturday Sampler here at Close to Home in Southington. You can begin to pick up your May kit beginning Saturday, May 20th at 10 a.m. Be sure to bring your completed April Basic block in by May 31st to receive the May's kit free. As you know, we have a lot of great classes that we're doing here in Southington. We have the Twisted Tray, the Biddy Bag, we have a patchwork mini duffel, plenty of quilts. We have a nice scrap quilt called Crossroads coming up very soon. We have a free motion quilting class. It's a 5-week course, takes you from the very beginning of quilting, pressing, cutting, and there's free motion quilting and the beginning quilting, which takes you the 5 weeks. Many more classes that are getting added, so please check our website at www.closetohomestores.com and check out our classes here in Southington. All right, so here's the May Basic block. We will be doing, working with the Creative Grids Cat's Cradle ruler, and the Cat's Cradle makes this shape. And I know you see a lot of triangles, but you don't have to cut any triangles. Everything is done with squares and rectangles and the ruler. So I'll show you how to make this. The blue and the white are strip sets. You're going to make 2 strip sets, and each one is going to make 2 4.5-inch squares. And then in the center we have a square and a square, which we're starting with our red 4.5-inch square, and we're adding a 2.5-inch yellow and using our Creative Grids folded corner clipper every time on every corner to make it a square and a square. So we'll be showing you the Cat's Cradle tool today, and here is our cutting instructions for the basic maze block. The first thing you want to cut from the red is a 4.5-inch square, and then you'll be cutting 4 squares that are 2 3/4. The yellow, you're going to start with a 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. You'll need 4 of those rectangles, and then 4 2.5-inch squares. Onto the white, along the top, you're going to be cutting a 5-inch strip and cutting those into 6-inch rectangles. And then, of course, we have our 2 strips for the white, 2 strips for the blue, both at 2.5 to make our strip sets. All right, so let's get started. As always, definitely use the Mary Ellen's Best Press on your kit fabric before you begin to cut them into the sizes that are recommended, all right, for this block. The folded corner clipper we have definitely used in the past, and we will be looking at the 2.5-inch markings on the Creative Grids folded corner clipper. And there's a lot going on this Cat's Cradle tool, and so we will be going over all the sides, all these measurements, the dash lines, everything has a place to go. And the nice thing about this ruler is you can make finished blocks 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and of course ours is the very last one. It's the 4-inch finished block size. So I'm going to have you be cutting these, and I already gave you those instructions. But by all means, we can make these in 5 other sizes beside the 4. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to take our 2 3/4 and 3 3/4-inch rectangles, and we're going to sew our red 2 3/4-inch squares on the ends. I'm not going to do them all, but I'm going to start with these 2 because I need to put at least 2 together to make the Cat's Cradle. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is sew our squares to our rectangles. The nice thing about the directions, it does identify where your cut pieces are going for which unit. If it's a square and a square, or it's the cat's cradle. And I hope there's bobbin thread in here. All right, let's get rolling. So I'm gonna sew that one at 1/4 of an inch, and this one. The next thing we want to do, and again, you're going to be doing all 4. I'm just going to do 2 for now. I'm going to cut these apart, and we're going to press these toward the rectangle. So I'm going to keep the red square nice and flat. So we're going to press this toward the rectangle. Notice when I'm pressing, I'm just giving the rectangle just a little tug to open up that seam and just giving it a little bit of heat. Okay, so I can do the other side as well. All right. So the next step is to take these 2 units and sew them together with opposite squares. Make sure you don't flip your seam. I'm going to sew from this side, and this is great because my seam allowance is going in this direction, but this one's going up, so make sure you do not flip that. Okay. And again, they should be the same size. Put them right on top of each other. Keep your ends right on top. All right. Next thing we want to do is I want to be able to press my squares again toward the rectangles. And if I press it, I'm going to have a little bit of an issue in the center. So all I'm going to do is cut into that seam allowance right between the 2 units. So right about there. All right, so now my pieces can lie nice and flat. You want to go a little bit more center than I did. It was a little too far that way. So you want to go right in between those. Right there. But it's okay. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark this using our friction pen. Of course, it's warm in my friction pen. So we're going to go to the wrong side of our unit. And we're going to look for these, the words that say place on the seam line. These solid black lines come right out to the edge of my ruler. And this line where it says mark the sewing line, I'm going to use my friction pen to mark where I'm going to sew. So I have these stitch lines that are coming right through my block. I have one coming through here. Sorry, my thread is white. It's probably hard to see. And I have one right here. So I'm going to line up those marks, those seam lines where it says place on the seam line with my ruler. So place on a seam line, place on the seam line, right into that corner. Just like that. All right. This corner should come out to one point, but this one won't. I'm not so worried about this, and this is great if this can come out to the corner. And this little intersection right here is really important because you're going to sew on that, but you don't want to cut away your corner here. So you're going to sew on this line, and then we're going to turn it around and place it on that one. So we'll turn this, and again, place on the seam line. So I have my white seam thread there. Again, it comes right out to the corner. And I'm going to go ahead and mark it with my friction pen. And again, we don't want to cut anything off right here, so place it just like that. So we're going to mark our sewing line, place on the seam line. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put it right side together with our 5x6 unit, and we're going to sew on those lines. And again, this should be a 5x6 inch piece. It's pretty close. and I'm going to sew right on this line. And by doing that, I'm not cutting off my point because the line that I marked was right into the corner of that. So that's going to be great. Let's do that. I got to go down both. We're sewing on this line. Okay, I'll turn it around. I'll do this one. We're going to go ahead and look at our ruler one more time, a couple times on this ruler. And we're going to look for the lines that say 1/4 inch seam allowance. There's one along here, and there's also one marked here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to take that black solid line at the 1/4 inch and put it right on our sewn line or our marked line that we sewed on. So as long as that line is on that sew line, we have our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's go ahead and trim this one. Sorry. Gets a little bulky right there by that point. We'll turn this one around and we'll do the same thing. Place the 1/4 inch seam allowance on the line you just sewed. And we can get rid of that. All right. Next thing we want to do is we're going to press this toward our white triangle. So again, put it on there and just kind of push it away. Again, a little bit of a tug just to open up the seam. And again, we'll do the second one. All right. And then the last step is to trim it to size. All right. So here we are on our ruler one more time where it says trim to size. And we're looking for the 4 inch, so it's the very last outside black line is going to be right in the corner of our red. And this dashed line is going right across the seam between the yellow and the white. So let's put that right into where we need it. So I have my black line. It's going right up into the square. And this dash line, don't worry too much about this right now. You're just looking at the 4 inch, the outside line, and the dash line. And we're going to cut this side. Okay. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this around one more time to trim. Place this right back where it was. Now, that solid line where it said 4 inch is right there kissing the seam where the red comes in contact with it. The dash line is going straight across our seam, and now this dash line going down the middle of our ruler is intersecting with the corner of the red square. So we're going to take a good look at that, and when we're happy with it, we're going to trim the last 2 sides. And there we have a 4 inch finished cat's cradle block. All right, so very quickly, the 2.5 inch squares are in the directions, but we're just going to start with our corner, one corner, place our folded corner clipper at the 2.5 inch mark so that it intersects right along the edge and the top. We're going to cut that. We're going to sew that and we're going to press that. Okay. Then we're going to rotate our square. We're going to rotate our square. We're going to put another one in the corner, and we're just going to keep going around doing the same thing. Placing our square, trimming it, sewing it, and pressing it. And we're going to turn it again. And the next one. So we're going to do that 4 times for every corner of our square and a square. And then the last thing, very simply, the strip set. We'll place our blue on the white. We're going to sew along the long line, and then we're going to cut those into 4.5-inch segments and then press toward the blue. All right, and that's pretty easy. I think you got this. May's block, again, bring in April's kit by the end of May to get this kit for free for basic. And again, it starts this Saturday, May 20th. Come in and pick up your kit. Thank you for watching.